The next rule change we're going to be covering is the kickoff rule change. Mike, would you also like to disclose what's going on here?
Yes, sir. The NFL team owners approved a proposal that will allow teams that fair catch kickoffs and safety kicks behind the 25-yard line to spot the ball at the 25-yard line. And also, this rule will only go into effect for one season on a trial basis.
I find it interesting. I don't remember the last time the NFL implemented a rule that was only going to be, trial based.
Right.
I think I'm kind of mixed. I don't really know exactly how to feel about that, because if you're the football league, if you're the NFL, you should know exactly whether or not a rule is going to be good or bad for the game of football, and you should make a definitive decision on it. And if you are going to go through a trial period, why not try that during the preseason and see how that goes?
Yeah.
Or why not partner with the XFL or the what's the other league now?
USFL.
The USFL. Mm-hmm. Why not see how they do with it?
Right.
And maybe they have those rules. I don't know. I just haven't paid attention.
Right. I think there are positives and negatives to this one. I know their intention is to prevent further concussions, or at least too many concussions.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're definitely trying as hard as they can, as the league, to prevent concussions. But I think at the same time, this really feels like the first, if not a major step towards potentially getting rid of kickoffs. And I wholeheartedly disagree with any notion of getting rid of kickoffs. You cannot take the foot out of football. That's just, no.
There'll still be field goals.
There'll still be field goals, but I think if you take away kickoffs, chances are you're going to also get rid of punt returns. And then if you do that, you will significantly change the back ends of every roster in the NFL, because teams carry backup safeties, corners, linebackers, what have you, specifically for special teams. And if you take that away, okay, you keep the field goals, fine. For one thing, I don't know how you replace kickoffs, just to change possession. I think punts on, fourth down, I think punting is perfect. It just makes sense. Kickoffs after you score also just makes perfect sense to me. Like the whole XFL or whatever league it is that has like the 4th and 25 or something that you can attempt to get the ball back and keep a possession. That's ridiculous to me. Mm-hmm. That's like, if in baseball you end the first inning and then it's like, well, if we hit a home run right now, we get another inning at bat. It's like, no, like that doesn't make sense. I personally,
or like reversing it out.
Yeah, or something like that, it doesn't make sense. I don't want to go on a baseball tangent, but I think there are old school baseball fans and there are like new school baseball fans. I feel like an old school football fan. It's like, just don't mess with it. Mm-hmm. I understand this rule change. I understand it, but it's always just made sense to me if the ball is in play. Well, I mean, if the ball's on the field, it's in play, but if it's past the end zone, you got to go, mm-hmm. And if you don't want to get concussion, slide something. I don't know, but get out of bounds,
Well, I have,
it just seems, go ahead.
I have, sort of an idea that I just thought about right now. If they're so worried about the, players having space to charge up into each other and smack each other, helmet to helmet contact, why not just make a rule so that way on kickoffs, the players on the kickoff team are closer to the blockers.
Right.
Um, I mean, that's just changing a lot of the formula, but it's just an idea. But what I don't want to see happen is them get rid of kickoffs altogether. I
Yeah,
think, it's just it's what you talk it's like a tradition. It's like, oh, what
yeah,
time is kickoff, right?
yeah, exactly.
It signifies the beginning of the game, and I think it's important to preserve it because at the end of the day, these players know that they're not playing a safe game. Like,
Yeah, that's what they
they
signed up
are
for.
they're grown men who are uh, signing themselves up to make a lot of money playing the game that, I mean, most of them I would say probably still love football. Some of them it's just all for the money, and that's all it ever was. But they know what they're signing up for. There's tons of research on CTE, concussions, and it's not for the what do they say, the will of the weak.
Hmm. Yeah,
It's not for people who aren't fully into it.
right. I mean, we've seen guys before that play a couple years of NFL football and then they retire. I forget the linebacker for the Niners.
Chris
Was he?
Borland.
Yeah, Chris Borland. I mean, even Kuechly, Luke Kuechly. He retired pretty early. Even Patrick Willis, I would say, retired pretty early.
Hmm.
Successful careers for both of those guys. And even Borland was as short as his career was. He looked like he was going to do some things, and then he just retires. And
Yeah,
I think, like you said, these guys make a lot of money, and I think there's a reason for that. Not only because of injury risk and all that, but also it's premium entertainment, and that's just how money works in this country.
yeah.
But
I
yeah,
think you brought up a good point earlier about how it's going to affect the roster construction because, like you said, there's going to be some, there's always safeties and defensive backs and sometimes even running backs who get just kept on the roster as a special teams player. If you eliminate the need for kickoffs, teams are just going to you're going to see teams keep way more wide receivers, and honestly, you're going to
it
see a lot more, I guess, offensive gadget players because
yeah,
you're going to be able to keep more players on the roster, and
right.
each guy can have their own specific skill set. So it'll drastically not just change the game in terms of special teams, it'll change roster construction.
Completely. Yeah. I mean, the way that teams do it now is, in the off season, like right now, we're getting ready for training camp, and you get a lot of veterans in free agency. Some of those veterans you can label as camp bodies.
Hmm.
Essentially, they're not going to make the roster. There's a defensive tackle for the Raiders. I guarantee you he won't make the roster. I think his name's John Jenkins. I could be wrong. They signed him. He was on the Dolphins last year. Um, but basically, when it comes down to time to get to the 53-man roster, that's when the teams are thinking, okay, we have our top 3 or 4 wide receivers set, our top 3 running backs set, our top X amount of these guys, this guy's, the linebackers, corners, safeties, right?
Hmm.
But when you get down to those last 2 or maybe 1 or 2 guys at each position, there's a big bump for the guys that are good at special teams. Some guys shockingly get cut, and you think, whoa, we kept that guy instead of this guy.
Hmm.
Maybe this guy that they cut is a really good, big play receiver, deep, tall or fast, whatever, gadget receiver. But the other guy, although he's not as talented or doesn't have the experience at wide receiver, he's really good at playing special teams. And
Hmm.
that was just the difference for the team was, hey, we got to make sure our special teams are good too, because it's important, at least right now.
Yeah.